Welcome to the International Teacher Podcast with your host, Matt the Family Guy, Kent the Cat Guy, and me, Greg the Single Guy. We are recording episodes from around the globe to tell you about the best kept secret in education. That's right, it's teaching overseas. We're glad to have you join us. All right, welcome to this podcast episode. Ask me who's on our show tonight, Kent.
Hey, Greg, who's on our show tonight?
Funny you should ask. We have a special 3-part, maybe 2 or 3-part episode going here. The first part is with Dillan and Valerie, and they are not even overseas yet, but they signed a contract somewhere, and we'll find out where. They have the idea to interview with us first on ITP, International Teacher Podcast, the greatest podcast ever for international teachers, before they even leave. And then we're going to get them back on the show after a while when they get to their destination next year, maybe, okay? So, Kent, I want to introduce the teaching couple to be international. They teach right now in, I believe, Houston. It's Dillan and Valerie. Welcome to the show.
Welcome.
Thanks, guys. Yeah,
Thank
we
you.
are
We're excited to be here.
So why don't you start off by telling us where you're from, where you grew up, and where you got your education.
Okay, well, I am native-born Texan, and I grew up in the Houston area. Got my education here, went to Texas A&M, and now I'm still teaching here.
Yeah, I lived in Houston, pretty much lived in the area in which I teach. Been doing that since 6. Same district, floating around a couple different schools within the same district. My wife and I actually met in high school, and now we teach in the same area that we grew up in.
Hey, Valerie, what was your first impression of Dillan back in high school?
Oh, Kent.
Well, he was very big. He was very tall, very muscular, football player, rugby player, and so, of course, I was like, who is this guy? And so I was like, but I'm about to go to college. I can't be with him. There's no way. So I tried to hold it off, but he kept pursuing. And finally we went to prom together, my senior year prom. And he was a year younger than me. So I was like, I'm cutting him loose when I graduate. And then he just kept following me. So he went to A&M with me and stuff like that. And I said, I guess I'll keep him around.
Oh, fantastic. Did you guys know that you wanted to be teachers when you got to A&M?
No, not really. It was getting the basics done first for your first 2 years. And it was, in my eyes, I was guided towards just history in general. So I got my degree in history. Not much you can do with that. So I didn't know my possibilities. And I ended up going into the teaching program after I graduated college.
Dillan, what brought you into teaching?
I thought summers off would be really cool, and doing the same thing as my wife or my girlfriend at the time and having the same time off would be neat. And I think I'd get really jealous if she had all those 2 months in June and July off. So I was like, yeah, I'll go ahead and do teaching too. And it's turned into a career, something I enjoy.
But we were also trying to get into, because we had been traveling a lot at that point. So senior year of college, we were able to go on family vacations to Mexico and to Europe and stuff like that. And I was graduating college and I go, teaching overseas would be great, but all we found was TEFL, just teaching English overseas, and that didn't pay anything. So you couldn't do that.
When did you hear about international teaching?
Okay, yeah, that's kind of where it all started. It was a Google search last February. We were kind of getting tired of what we were doing and the hours we were putting in. We wanted to try and do something different. And when I stumbled across it, I brought it home to Valerie and I said, hey, what do you think about this? Kind of expecting a little bit of a little bit of pushback, I don't know. But she was like, yes. And then did a little bit more research towards the end of February. I kind of realized it was a little bit late in the season. Also, we have a family, we have a house, we have a lot of I's to dot, T's to cross. And I wanted to wait an entire, or at least throughout the beginning of the summer or the end of the summer, to let it percolate. Do we still want to do this? And that way we wouldn't have rushed anything. So last August, we started applying or become members of those recruiting sites, interviewed, got job offer, and now it's, really becoming a reality.
Oh, wait a second. We got to slow down a little bit. You went through 6 to 8 months right
sorry.
there in like a heartbeat. No,
Yeah.
that's okay. Let's go back a little bit. You said something about Texas. No, I'm just kidding. I've been listening, Kent, really. I guess one thing I wanted to say.
Well, there
Okay.
was a question earlier
So-
that was asked about if we ever taught in the same school. We did our first 2 years at the same school together. We loved it. So being able to do that again is also going to be really, really neat.
What have you been teaching for the last couple of years in Houston at in a public school, I would imagine, or private schools?
I'll go first on this one. I've done math since day one. Not exactly something that I knew I was going to get into. It's kind of like my first gig as a teacher, and then I'm on year 11 now. So started with math. I've stuck around it. I really enjoy it. I've actually gotten better at it. And then I spent 2 years at one school. Then I got a new job at another school in the Houston area. But this came with coaching and math. So I've still been doing math the whole time, but I've also taken on for the last 9 years coaching responsibilities. And that goes all year round. And that is a big factor in why we kind of want to get out of what we're doing now, because it's taking a lot of time away from me at home. And that was a big motivation for me to try and find something else. Now, I'll still be doing math, but now I won't be doing the coaching anymore.
On my end of it, I was teaching at the lower income schools first, and it was rewarding. I was teaching social studies. So 6th grade world culture, 7th grade, we have Texas history here, and then 8th grade US history. And so that was incredibly rewarding being able to teach it. I was pretty good at it. But then when we had a baby in 2020 during COVID, he was still coaching and would be gone he was working 14, 16-hour days. He wouldn't see us for like 3 days in a row. And so after COVID hit, it was kind of like, family's like super important. We need to make sure that we're focused on us. And Dylan's like a dog with a bone. So once he gets something in his head, he won't let it go. He comes home, he was like, how can I make my family happy? What can we do to change the situation and still get money? Because that was the biggest thing. If he quit coaching, we wouldn't have gotten that stipend. We wouldn't have gotten that income. So he was looking at the best ways to do that. And International Search Associates is the first person he reached out to and got the information and came home with it. And I said, absolutely, like, this life isn't sustainable anymore. And having the workload increase as well with not only teaching history and cultures, now you have Facebook where they can have the parents have so much more like negativity. And then it was just getting more and more negative on all ends. And it was something we could not, I can't continue with it in Texas anymore.
Greg, I'm going to ask a follow-up question here, but doesn't Dillan and Valerie strike you as relatively unique in the sense that they're mid-career teachers? A lot of people that we meet going international are sort of maybe newer to their careers or maybe on their tail end of their careers as they've bought into the retirement system in the United States, maybe built up a little bit of a pension. But you guys, 11 years in the U.S. system, now you're making the leap over the seas. Was that ever a part of the discussion for the two of you?
That was the biggest drawback for us for so long. Okay.
Yeah, I guess we didn't think there was any money in it.
We have this thing called the teacher retirement system. So TRS is how we pay into it, not Social Security, like most other places.
Yep.
And that once they kind of trap you into it. And so they say that you can only use your TRS money when you retire. And it was like, oh no, I'm stuck. So now I can only move up in the teaching Texas world. So I try to improve upon that and get my master's, get into administration, but that's also really difficult. And so we tried to start like getting new accounts of retirement. So putting into a 403 and other savings methods. So it could be plausible to change when we're 35 years old.
We kind of knew about the international, but kind of only through like the TEFL stuff. Knew that didn't really pay. Yeah, I got the impression it wasn't really for established like professionals. You're not going to raise a family with that kind of stuff. And then we kind of dabbled in looking at like the international schools, but we kind of thought that was only around for military bases, American schools on those. And we knew that they definitely had a preference towards military spouses, which is completely understandable. And then I stumbled upon the international teaching world. Spent the last few months researching is it really this good? And my answer was kind of seems to be across the board. It's that some people don't have very good experiences, but I feel like the general consensus is it's a better way of life.
And it's more family.
Yeah.
I felt the more of a family vibe through everything I'm listening and hearing to, and even listening to y'all's podcast. I was just like, it seems so much friendlier and so much more of a community system. And even the people you meet are more, oh yeah, I went to Switzerland. I did all of these things. So I love that.
All right. So listen, I just heard you say the magic words, y'all. So
Oh.
I lived for Texas in a while. I was in Dallas, of course. That was 100 years ago. But I learned the plural of y'all. Do you know what this is? Either of you? Do, 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 do,
Y'all.
do.
Plural.
Wrong. Valerie?
You all use guys? No, it can't be that one. I don't know.
Yeah. You guys is a Midwestern thing, right? And y'all, all y'alls. All y'alls is how you say plural in Texan. That's what I understand. Maybe I
Greg,
was
you're from
wrong.
Wisconsin. You're from Wisconsin. They're from Texas.
I went and lived down there for like 3.5 years,
month.
man.
You lived there for a month and a half.
It's one of those things. Yeah, I mean, I say it all the time. Hey, all y'all get over here.
All right. So
We're-
here
we're
we go.
fixing-
Yeah,
we're
you
fixing
agree with
you.
me, right? Oh,
I
I
do.
loved,
That
I
is-
used to have on my license plate, it said fixin'ta.
Mhm.
I love that
His-
phrase.
Dylan's family's from the Northeast coast, and I was saying we're fixing to do this. Do y'all want to join? And they had no idea what I was saying. They were like, "What?" I'm like, "How is this communication not hitting? I don't know."
All right, so let's talk a little bit about recruiting then. Dylan, you had mentioned that you had gone on to a couple of recruiting sites, joined a couple of different companies, and we've talked about them before on the podcast here. Can you tell us a little bit about how you started doing the job search?
Well, it all started off with a bunch of research. Started from going just kind of on websites and all sorts of different places. And then I'll tell you that one of the biggest helpful avenues I went through was actually Reddit. There's an international teacher forum on Reddit, which is how I found you guys actually. And that has been where a lot of questions were answered, where I got a lot of general consensus of people that either enjoyed it or didn't enjoy it. But in terms of recruiting agencies, I looked up a lot of them. I ended up doing Scroll and Search Associates. I know not everybody is the same. I found Search Associates to be very helpful, even with the price tag that comes with it. I mean, I enjoyed the conversations with our recruiter. He helped us kind of fine tune our resumes. And then from there, any other questions that I kind of had, he was able to direct me in the right direction. And from there, started applying through jobs. And that's where I got most of my interviews too, was through Search. I did get one interview through Scroll, and that was my first interview in 11 years. It went okay. I didn't end up getting the offer, but it was good to have that experience.
Valerie, what was your role in the research leading up to the job?
Well, so I was super duper busy, raising my child as Dylan was sitting watching football players practice. So he was able to do a lot more of the research as I had my little baby. And I also, during school hours, I have like 180 students, and I'm constantly grading papers and doing all this stuff. And Dylan comes home and he's like, "Oh, look what I found. Oh, look what I found." So at nighttime, when I was feeding our child, I would be like, okay, surfing the internet, like, okay, that's the job. That's what he had researched, and I kind of looked into it as well. I definitely looked into, at that point, kind of narrowing down the countries and continents that we either would not do or like on our top tier ones. And I said, like, heck no to, ABC. Really trying to get a Switzerland job, but those aren't exactly easy to find.
Give me an example of something that Dylan came home and said, "Hey, what about this one?" You're like, "No, not that one." Like just a country, continent.
Okay.
What was his idea that he had? You're like, "No."
I said no to Africa. Anywhere, I was like, just no to Africa because of just the getting the shots and having to get the medical and all that stuff. That just kind of scared me. And also, I know that it's a little hot there, and I'm done with hot, ironically. I know we're going to the Middle East, but I'm just done with that.
Now tell everyone, how old is your baby now?
She's 2.5.
2.5. Wow.
So she's a COVID baby. She was born July of 2020.
Okay, so Dylan, you're doing the research. You're bringing your research home. You are running your ideas past Valerie. Was there any ideas that you had that you secretly hoped she would love that she didn't? How did that work out for you?
I was kind of hoping she was really gonna be gun ho about Southeast Asia. That's kind of where I had my heart set at the very beginning. And she never really was a big fan of that. But to be honest, I don't feel like she was really a big fan of anywhere except for like, I want to go live in Switzerland. I'm like, hey, nobody, apparently they don't make much money in Switzerland from what I read. And then we, our realities kind of leveled out a little bit. But yeah, I did a lot of the legwork on the recruiting, just because she was
And
being an extra special wife and being busy. Is the first one was Saudi Arabia. Hey, what do you think about Saudi Arabia? I don't know. And then it was, let's just do the interview. And then you start to see everything that these schools have to offer and what your life could be like, and it's you're like, oh well, I think it might be something we can check out. And that's kind of how
I will
every school went.
I will say that South America, I was really not. I just want something a little bit more different than I don't know what that was. And so for South America, I kept saying no, no, no. And Dylan was looking at stuff, and it really did look very beautiful. I was thinking about the maybe the dirtier countries, and I didn't see all the beauty that it had to offer. So I think if he tried harder, he would have probably been able to sway me into doing some places in South America if we had the opportunity.
Did you guys meet, Dylan? Did you meet any schools in person? Did you do a job fair? Tell us a little bit about what led up to interviewing for the job you accepted.
I applied through Search. We did a Zoom or a video conference with the principal or with the superintendent first, I think, and then was the principal, and then it was back to superintendent. So it was a 3-part interview. I never met anybody in person. Or if we didn't land a job by January, I was planning on going to I think it was the Search Fair in Boston, I believe. Luckily, I didn't have to go and do that. I've heard you guys mention before on your podcast that you guys have had some pretty good experiences going out there, but it wasn't exactly something I wanted to do. Especially, I was planning on doing it by myself, letting Valerie and our daughter stay home and me kind of going to feel it out. But I'm glad, like I said, I'm glad I didn't have to do that. I got it all taken care of before the fairs started rolling around, and it was all done via Zoom or Google Meets.
I just remember that we did have a interview. I'm not really sure how we got it in Saudi Arabia, but not there. They had come to Houston, and so we were able to go and meet. I guess it was the superintendent, and then 2 other people that worked at the school. Even thinking about going to the Middle East at first, I was like, no, because that's not. You hear everything about the Middle East, and so when we went there and I saw and I met and we were talking, that's when it clicked to me, like, oh, this isn't what I expected. This is something very different. And when I came home and I said, oh yeah, we had a job for Saudi Arabia, they go, oh, I know somebody that's worked there. It's beautiful. It can be this, it can be that. It's great. It's amazing. And from there, again, my mind changed a little bit. And I was like, oh, so it opened it up a lot for me. We didn't get the job, but it was an important experience I needed to have.
Yeah, that's how these things work, right? You just kind
Yeah.
of weave your way to your ultimate destination, right?
And I will say another thing about Search real quick, the Search Associates, they really helped us with our resumes. So since we hadn't been in the game for, 10 plus years, I had a very outdated resume. And they took it and they just really, really helped me make it to where it was viewable and catered towards the international teaching type things. Because a lot of my stuff said like behavior management. I'm very good with getting behaviors in line. They go, yeah, no, you don't really need that with some of these schools. It's really about making positive connections. It's like, oh, I got that. Okay. So he catered it to us and to the schools that we went to. So that was really, really, I think that was worth the price tag immediately.
That's awesome. I did not know that Search does that with resumes because I have a few other connections for resumes. Kent, you were going to say something.
I was going to say, did you guys interview together for the school that you accepted?
We did.
They would interview you both, and you both have different skill sets. What did you get a sense for who they really needed and wanted between the two of you? Because sometimes it'll be Dylan, it'll be you, the guy they need, and Valerie's along and they're going to find a spot for her. But sometimes it's the other way around. Sometimes it's Valerie, we need you, and we got a spot for Dylan. Did you get a sense of what their need was?
I really think that they kind of needed both of us. We did have a couple of interviews where we did feel it was like kind of one in the other. But this one, I felt like it was pretty evenly matched.
Dylan, can you tell us what job you were hired for?
I was hired for a math, 6 through 8 kind of a math job. I'm pretty sure it's going to be around 8th grade.
And that's your wheelhouse, so to speak.
Yeah, absolutely.
Valerie, what did they hire you for? Do you know?
I think it's like ancient social studies or world cultures. So I'm not really sure, but something with a history part.
Yeah, because you were a history person in college. So this sounds like a very nice fit.
I notice that you guys are very hip about this right now. Are you? I would imagine you're both nervous. Not if you're nervous. Yes, they're both a little nervous. Yeah, they're both nodding profusely right now. The reason I'm asking is because now there's a lot of paperwork, even to get into a job fair or to something like search, you're filling out all this paperwork. Now, I would imagine your school is starting to send you and promising you more and more communication. Are you starting to feel the brunt of that from the school asking you for these kinds of documents for their government and their education department?
They've got a really nice portal set up for their new hires, so it made all the document submission fairly straightforward. That part's done with. I got rid of that as soon as I could. I didn't want that on my plate. So that part's done. What's going to be more so now, us focusing on what to do with our house and our belongings and kind of that avenue.
So what's the most stressful for me, I think, right now is having to deal with moving out the retirement from TRS and then moving to Social Security with the new school. And so it's about the future and about savings and where does that money go and how do bank accounts work kind of thing. So now that's what I'm trying to figure out.
Is the school you're going to, Valerie, have you pay into the U.S. Social Security system?
Yes.
That's interesting to
unique.
me. I did not know that any schools do that. A lot of times when we leave the United States, teachers end up maybe leaving some kind of a deal, like they might take a sabbatical from their position or be granted time away from their school, and then they can go back if it doesn't work out. That's what I've heard a little bit about. I didn't teach before I left, so you guys are sort of in a whole gray area for me. But what I have understood from other people is that the best way to get through your anxiousness now is to start talking to some of the other international teachers. Have they set up some kind of communication system that you can talk to the teachers that are there now and find a teaching couple?
Yes. They're trying to set up a link to have all the new teachers have a Zoom conference and stuff, which has been difficult with all the time zones. And then they let me get in touch with another couple, and it was just me talking to them about just everyday things like your cell phones, like what kind of cell phone you need to get, and like the internet packages there and stuff like that, and like how do you communicate back and forth with your family at home. So they kind of did that communication with us, which made me take a deep sigh of relief, just knowing that like, okay, there's people to talk to. They also lived in Virginia or something like that. And so we were able to have kind of very similar experiences. And it was comforting.
And Dylan, what about your house? Have you guys talked a little bit about this? You don't have to answer that, but I mean, have you had this discussion about, are you going to keep it in the family? Are you going to sell? Are you going to, rent out so you have a place to come back to? How about these kinds of questions? Are they all going through your head right now?
I mean, yeah, they've been going through my head for months and months and months. But we've decided that if we ever did come back, our plan is to try and stay away for as long as possible. And one of the big reasons for that is work-life balance and seeing the American schools and kind of what is happening to them. It's not exactly something that we want our daughter have to go through for various reasons. I'm sure you guys know. But in terms of the house, I didn't want that safety net. I don't want the safety net of having to come back to the same place where we already know we don't really want to be. So we are going to sell we talked with a financial advisor about selling versus renting. And yes, we could make a little bit more money, it seemed like, if we wanted to rent it out, hire a management company to do all that. Or we could just take every bit of it and try and invest it in something safer, like a Fortune 500 type deal, make just about almost the same as much without the headache.
I don't have a place. I don't own anything. I own a glass door. That's the screen door right now. So I don't have these same problems. Kent actually owns a house right now in Seattle. You and Carla own a house, right, Kent? There's so many different flavors of what to do.
Greg, if I can interrupt you, Greg,
You can always
to be
interrupt
fair,
me,
you
Kent.
don't actually own the glass door.
I
your
do.
house.
Someone gave it to me.
That's part of the rental. I think you're 0 for 1 on that one, buddy. Hey, Valerie, tell me, when you guys signed on the dotted line, what was your family's reaction?
My family knew that I always wanted to teach overseas, like once I graduated college, and they knew I was going to like these seminars and stuff with the TEFL program. And so they knew that wasn't working out for me. And so I ended up just traveling in the summertime overseas. And so they were like, I know you really want to teach. And so when I got it, they were ecstatic for me. So they were super excited that I was doing it. And they know that there's an airplane that they can get to us. So they were fine with it.
Dillan, your family?
Well, my family's in two different parts of the U.S. So the ones that are in the East Coast, I don't see them every day anyways. So they were excited because nothing too much changes for us. My mom here in Houston, she was really excited, and then as it became more of a reality to her that I wasn't going to be here, then it starts to become more. She's getting more upset every day.
But she's also a flight attendant.
She is.
Oh, so I don't know if you told the listeners this yet, but your destination is in the Middle East. Valerie, Dillan, did any family members say, oh, the Middle East, isn't it kind of dangerous there? It doesn't sound like, Valerie, your family brought these complaints to you. Dillan, maybe yours?
Everybody, we say, is, oh no, the Middle East. It's how could you go there? It's so dangerous. All right, well, I guess we'll never see you again.
Daughter.
Oh yeah, they're all saying it.
Do you guys have an answer to that nowadays?
Well, the answer would be what I did. Do your research. Yeah, I mean, we're not going to teach in Syria. Granted, we are next door, but every bit of research that I've done, it points to that it's probably safer than where we're living now.
Syria was my first international school interview back when the community school in Damascus, Syria was still open and running.
When I told my family that I was leaving and going overseas, okay, I was not going to the Middle East. I decided never to go to the Middle East. However, it was just because at the time I didn't want to go, or I was 2000 and it was 2001, and right before the towers fell, I was in Honduras. Now, I don't know if you guys know about Honduras, but everyone's like, "Oh my God, it's dangerous." The CIA pages say don't go there because there's gang warfare and it's poverty and all this other stuff. And I told my parents right when I got hired in February of 2001, I was leaving in August, and I told my parents, I said, I'm going to Honduras to teach. And my mom says, oh my God, you're going to die. Like first thing out of her mouth. And my dad follows that up with an immediate response of, hey, they've got great scuba diving down there. And I was like, here's mom, here's dad thinking about, oh, what could Greg do down there? That's cool. And mom's like, oh my God, my son, But yeah, that was a reaction. And I'm sure you guys are getting a lot of reactions about Middle East, because every time I say I live in the Middle East, they're just like, it's a wide range of reactions, right? But what you'll find is once you live over in the Middle East, there is a huge expat community in almost every Middle Eastern country. You're going to find those teachers, and you're going to be in this big community, and it's going to be great because you do know two guys in the Middle East already.
Yeah.
Can't deny. Yeah.
Thanks.
And Matt, of course, from the ITP. So it's going to be great for you guys. I can't wait to see this happen. I'm glad you guys are done with your paperwork, because that was just a big thing for me, I guess.
Yeah, Valerie, Dillan, you guys both have mentioned that you have pretty good vibes about the school you're going to. Tell us just a little bit about what's given you a really good impression and really good vibes about the school you're going to.
Well, I can tell you it came from doing the interview with a school in South Korea. On paper, South Korea was one of our top destinations at first. It was it's safe, it's beautiful. We were excited. We pretty much got through the entire interview process, and we were just waiting on the offer. Our offer did come at the same time we got our offer from the school in the Middle East. If you would have asked me a year ago which one I would have chose, it would have been hands down probably South Korea. But then after interviewing with the superintendent and some of the people, and talking to those couples that actually worked at the school, it seemed like a good school. It just didn't seem like a school for us. And so there was just kind of unsaid tones from the staff and the people we talked to and the superintendent and the principal that just seemed the school in the Middle East
Vibes were
just
off.
seemed more like home. Yeah, and it seemed more like home.
I think it's interesting because my style of looking for a school is to say the location doesn't matter very much, right? For me, the most important thing is I need to love my job. I need to go to a school that I connect with that as much as possible. I mean, I never see the school before I move there, but the country I don't have a family, so it might be different with others, but I can empathize with the way of you feeling Korea sounds awesome. However, the school that you're looking at the time may not be the right fit for you. The one in Middle East might be a right fit for you. So I'm happy. I have a good feeling about it just hearing you say that, because a lot of people think it's destination. And some people it's very important to be in a certain destination. For me, it's been across the board, across the world to go to different schools, but I've really been luckier the longer I've stayed overseas to find the right schools and the right fit for that. For me, what about you, Valerie, as far as your feelings about that school?
So I guess whenever we interviewed, the first interview with it's Saudi Arabia, and I finally got my mindset changed a bit, where it's not necessarily the location, like you said. It was the community that you're with. It was how are people going to help you. And then I started to talk to my family about just moving to the Middle East, and since we are Houston, oil and gas, there's a lot of people that, I know somebody who's been to this place, that place. And so my family was pretty comfortable with it from the beginning in that sense, and the safetiness of it, because they do have so many friends that they know that have gone over there. So then we also have some relatives that went to Japan. And so whenever we went to go visit them, that's when I was like, okay, so now we have a South Korea interview. That's really a beautiful place. I do know the community's so safe and I'm awesome. Definitely it. I want to go to South Korea. And then, as what Dillan was saying, we started to talk more and more to them. I really like the people. I really did. But the viewpoint and their mission statement of their school wasn't about community involvement. It was all about only education, in the sense of that's all we're trying to do is educate, not make global citizens, not make it to where I thought it was going to be the best fit for my daughter too. So that's kind of why I was like, And we had the same offer with the school that we accepted in South Korea in the same day. And so we had to make a hard decision, but we chose the Middle East. So
We'll take a moment's break now to remind you how to reach out to us. Of course, you can address any negative comments to Kent, the cat guy. We do love to hear from you. If you're out on Facebook, we don't do that, but our handle on both Instagram and Twitter are at ITPExpats with an S, ITPEXPATS. As a handle, if you want to, you can send us an old email at internationalteacherpodcast@gmail.com, or you can visit us at our new website at www.itpexpat.com. www.itpexpat.com. Well, back to the show. I can't wait to see what happens with you guys. I'm so glad you're on our show talking about your feelings. This is very personal stuff too, and you're getting right out there with our listeners. We have almost like 15,000 downloads now. We're almost to 50 episodes.
All from Greg's
almost.
mom.
Exactly.
And now for mine.
and mom jokes, right? And yeah, and the other thing is we have it's almost our 2-year anniversary because April 2nd, I believe, in 2021 was our first episode that we put out. But I love having both of you on here with sharing the experience as you go, because this is the part 1 for anybody just joining us. Do they do that, or is it not radio? It's like a podcast.
I think they start and keep going
They
through
won't
chronologically.
come halfway through,
Maybe
will they?
someone stopped halfway through, skipped the commercials, that type of thing.
True. Maybe stepped away, did laundry, came back, and because we're still talking. But yeah, if anybody that's out there listening, we're going to do a second episode with these guys. I'm not saying goodbye yet. I'm just saying midpoint here. I love this discussion, and I'm trying to go through some more feelings and stuff that you're going to be heading up against. So I asked Kent ahead of time, and I wanted to model for you guys. But one of the things I remember from my first year overseas, going overseas, before I even left, I remember that packing was just like this. I don't know. It's huge. I mean, I was giving stuff away. My parents have this. Everybody has a piece of Greg LeMoyne stuff somewhere in the basement. My dad says that I have like 35 boxes in his basement, but I think I only have one. So we have this disagreement. Are you starting to give stuff away and find homes for some of your belongings? Because you're not going to take it all with you, especially if your house is being sold.
Well, this has been a super fun time. So as you know, the housing market right now is crazy. So my parents decided to sell their house, make a lot of money, and live in an RV. So I was like, wait, excuse me, where do I give my stuff to? And they're like, well, our storage unit's full. Can't give it to us. They'd already given all their stuff out
Val.
to my family. Yeah. So I'm struggling. So I'm trying to give it all away.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. We want to sell a lot of stuff, because if we do come back, we want to start fresh. So right now we're trying to sell as much as we can, and we've made zero progress on that. So we got a lot to do.
You still have
trying
time.
to figure out, yeah, we do.
Yeah.
And trying to figure out what we want to keep and what we want to bring. We are going to try and keep it to a minimum of what we're going to bring over there. Yeah, that's probably the biggest stressor right now, is just the stuff.
Do you have an animal, a pet?
Yes, a cat.
Good question. We do. Yeah, we got a cat, and we are bringing him with us.
Kent, you must be so happy
Do
to
you
hear
guys
that.
need another one? I got one over here. Ship them over. Maybe meet you somewhere in the Middle East. Do the handover.
You'd be surprised, man. Everybody, the first thing they say is, "Oh, well, I guess we'll never see you guys again," when we say we're going to the Middle East. And then the second thing they ask is, "Oh, are you bringing your cat?" And we always say, "Well, yeah." And we say, "Yeah, we're going to bring our cat." And then everybody's response is, "What? Why?" And my kind of response is, "What do you mean, why? We've had this.
Why?
We've had
Family.
this guy for." Yeah, we've had this guy for 9 years. Why would we just leave him?
Okay, my tip. I'd like to give a tip. Greg, are you done with your tip? Don't pack
Yeah, go
too
ahead.
much.
I don't know anything about
Are you
cats.
sure? No, Greg. No, what do I know about cats? Greg said when he first left overseas, this is not my tip, but I just want to make sure Greg said his. He had 200 pounds of stuff in one bag. And he got to the airline and they said, what? No, this, you can't bring this bag. So, Greg, your tip is what?
Layer.
Big, smaller bags, or just don't bring as much?
Hey, thanks, Kent, for taking my point, and going with it. I was going to reveal that towards the end.
Oh,
but
that was the big reveal. Oh,
it was at the end. I was going to play a game with these
Yeah.
guys and have you right off the
Really?
cuff give some advice. But here's
I
the
thought
funny story.
I thought this was the advice section.
No, I already gave my
Wait
piece of
a
advice.
minute. No,
I was wondering about the
I have
cat.
my show notes. I have my show notes. This was the advice section.
All right, that's the end of the show. Thanks a lot, organization.
Thank you, guys. See you guys next week. See you guys in about
All
6.
right.
Okay. For many people, in my opinion, who are international teachers, the two most stressful times are the 2 or 3 weeks that you leave the United States and the 2 or 3 weeks when you first arrive in your new country, in your case, the Middle East. My advice is this: enjoy them. Spend those last 2 or 3 weeks you're there in Texas and just appreciate Texas for what it is. Look at Houston with new eyes, because you don't know when Houston's going to be your home again, if ever. But when you get to your country in the Middle East, you're going to have your head swimming with things to do. don't forget to look up, look down, look left, look right, because those first couple of weeks, those images and those impressions you get are going to be ones that last with you for the years to come. So enjoy yourself, breathe, and have a fantastic time. That's my advice.
Well, thank
Wow.
you.
Love it.
Well,
Thank
yeah,
you.
we're gonna try.
All right, it's my advice time then. When I first left, I realized that I was not going to have enough room for everything. So first, I whittled away everything that I could. My most important things I had family or friends keep for me. I have a favorite art piece of artwork. My friend Joe has it in his office. He's had it there for 23 years. He claims it's his now. And I actually said, you can have it, right? It's one of my favorite pictures ever, piece of artwork. But after whittling down through other things, here's a good piece of advice. Make sure that you stay up to date on your driver's license, your birth certificate. You keep your birth certificate with you. All of the original stuff I would certainly keep with you when you travel, and digitize it and make photocopies of it to share. But keep the originals and keep those locked up somewhere safe when you travel. You never know when you need the originals. And I do the same thing with my certifications. I always go back to my state and make sure I'm up to date on everything. I just renewed my driver's license. When I go back home, even if it's, you can't wait for this stuff, and don't let it get out of date. So make sure that all of your documents are updated. Bring your health documents with you so that you and your family, all three of you, can have your updates and stuff done. They have your history, and digitize it, right? So that's a really big thing for me. And part of the whittling down, besides my documents, was I chose like a few favorite books. Instead of taking a whole bunch of books for your classroom, until you get there, you won't know what you have. So don't expect to have nothing and take all of your work supplies with you. Digitize as much as you can, because the weight is the issue. Every time somebody gives me something, I say, how much does it weigh? Literally, for 23 years, people have given me a gift. I'm like, that's too heavy.
Nunu weighs 10 and a half pounds.
Yeah. So anyway, I guess I could wrap up with that advice is that, except for your big ass cat and your family, worry about weight. How's that? Is that clear enough for you guys? We're full of advice, and we're full of other
Yeah.
stuff too,
Full
right?
of it. Yeah, we're full
Yeah,
of
we
it. All
are.
right. Dillan and Valerie, it's your turn. Before we give you the last word, what advice do you have for people who are 1 year, 2 years, 3 years behind you? They've been teaching for a couple of years in the States. They're thinking about that next step. What advice do each of you have for them?
My advice would be to not worry about the money in the sense of how you're going to save it. There's always a way to do your research. You're not stuck in this place that you are in right now. Like it's going to be an adventure. So I'm excited that we're embarking on ours right now. Dillan, what about you?
I would say just to do it. The only reason we didn't do it sooner was because we found out about it just now, or within the last year. I've talked to a few people who say, "Oh, I wish I could do that." Well, why not? Why can't you?
I've heard it's the best
afraid.
kept secret
It's
in
scary.
teaching.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's scary, but you just got to take that leap.
Yeah, it's not for everybody to go overseas, is it? But I love your advice. Just do it. And you wouldn't believe how many people that we talk to in our world, right? And that's their advice too. Just take that leap if you can. If you're in a good enough spot to just take that leap, and you can always, 2 years out of your life is not very much. A 2-year contract is very normal in the bigger schools, the established schools, and therefore just take that leap for 2 years. If you can get time away from your school and keep that sort of as a security blanket to have a place to go back to, fine. Otherwise, take that leap and just do it. I love that advice. And the money, you're going to find out, I believe, that you can save more money overseas than you will in the States. And that's across the board. Almost every teacher I've ever talked to overseas has been able to pay off student loans, have been able to at least set aside one of their paychecks to get themselves, not out of major debt, but to start whittling away at things. Kent, do you agree with that?
I agree with it.
I knew you would.
Okay, Greg, let's go ahead and get Dylan and Valerie's final thoughts, and Greg, your final thoughts, because we will come back. We'll come back in about 6 months, and we'll get caught up because our listeners are going to be wondering about Dylan and Valerie. So, what do you think, Greg? Can we go ahead and get final thoughts from everyone?
We're really, really excited, obviously. Nervous too. It's a big move for our family. We're kind of cutting off all safety nets to make it to be this is the option. There's not a fallback. We're kind of playing the grass is greener on the other side game. And I hope half of what I think is true, because if that's the case, then I think we'll be in a better spot.
My final thoughts are, I know kids are going to be kids everywhere. I'm just curious to see how my family can grow in this experience. I think that's going to be pretty awesome to see.
I don't even want to follow that, Kent. Their ideas are so wonderful. Let's just say this. We are going to support you too. We have connections. We have bad advice. We've got good advice. You can still listen to us on the ITP.
We got a glass door, apparently.
A glass door, exactly. Why did you bring that up again, Ken? Anyway, I want to say we are out here for you as support. I'll say that publicly. And hopefully you'll get to know a little bit more about that school, but you really won't find out until you step off that plane and go into those classrooms, which I am so excited for you two to do this first thing, because it takes me back to 2001 when I got off that plane in Honduras. I can't wait for your experience to unfold and to have you guys join us again from the Middle East.
It's going to be exciting. We can't wait either.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Thank you both. On behalf of Greg, the single guy, Matt, the family guy and absentia, and myself, Kent, the cat guy, I'd like to give a warm thank you to Dylan and Valerie. We will see them again in 6 months, so I hope everyone comes back and joins us. And I am happy to say that at least 2 out of 4 of us do agree the grass is always greener when you're an international teacher. See you next time.